Okay, for our topic today, we will learn about rational numbers. Okay, but before we dive in deeply into rational numbers, let's try to recall what type of numbers have you learned before. Now let's start with a simple equation. So I have x minus 1 over here, it's equals to 0. Okay? So to solve for x, this negative 1, I can bring it over to the other side and I get this. X is equals to 0 plus 1. And with that, I will get x is equals to 1. Now, 1 over here, it's what we call a whole number, right? This will be the number that you all have learned during primary times, or even now in secondary. Alright, your whole number. Okay, this is the first type of number that you learn. What about the second type? Let's see over here. I have x plus 1 is equals to 0. Alright, so by using your knowledge in algebra, we can bring 1 to the other side, and I have x is equals to 0, right, minus 1. Okay, and with that, I will get x is equals to negative 1. So over here, what do we get? We get our negative number. Alright, okay. Now, you all have learned last time when we are counting numbers, we use our fingers to count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? But take a look at this negative number over here. All right? How do we count negative number with our fingers? We can't, right? But in order to solve this equation, we have to resort to an idea of using a negative numbers. Right, so negative numbers, although we can't physically count it, but it does exist. Okay, so this whole number and negative numbers, we give them a special name. We call this integers. All right, we call this integers. All right. Now these are the common numbers that you all have learned before, and you all have been using it throughout your schooling life in primary and also now in secondary. There's also another type of number that you learn, all right, which is this one, okay? So I have over here this guy over here. Now, let's solve this equation. Let's find what is x. We can quickly solve it by moving 1 to the other side. So we will get 2x is equals to 0 plus 1, all right? And then 2x is equals to 1. And this 2, when we move it over here, that will become a division. Now, what do we call these numbers over here? This is another type of number that you have learned. We call this fractions. All right? Fractions. Okay? So, based on all these numbers, so what's rational number? So, rational number here, I can write as like this. So, rational numbers, okay, they are the numbers that can be written in fraction. Okay? How many types of fraction that you have learned? Right? You have learned the proper fraction, improper fraction, and mixed numbers. Now, all these falls under the same category where they are rational numbers. Now, another way of thinking about rational numbers is this. Take a look at this word, rational. Okay, can you see this word over here that I highlight? Ratio, all right? So when we take a look at this fraction, 1 over 2, 1 over 2 over here can be also written as a ratio, which is this. Alright? So that's why a fraction is a rational number. Okay? So this is the general rule of a rational number, that rational numbers, okay, are numbers that can be written in fractions. Okay? So let me write the big thing over here. This is our rational number. Okay? So the first one we have over here, it's our fraction. Alright? What we have over here, it's our fraction. So fraction over here belongs to the family of rational numbers. Now, take a look deeply at this. 1 over 2. 1 over 2 can be, written in some other forms. 1 over 2, which means 1 divided by 2, which you can write as 0.5. Now, take a look at over here. This is a decimal, but it's not just any decimal. It's called a terminating decimal. Okay, why? Because after 5, there's no number over here. It stops, all right? It stops. So we call this terminating decimal. Okay? Take a look at this terminating decimal. Where does it come from? It comes from a fraction, all right? And we know that fractions are rational number. So in other words, terminating decimal also belongs to the family of rational numbers. Now let's take this idea and bring it one step further. If I can write 1 over 2, all right, what about 1 over 3? Now if you use your calculator, you will get 0.333. It goes to infinity. Okay? We can show this by using a very simple example of long division. Alright? 1 over 3 means 1 divided by 3. So we can just quickly solve this. 0. Alright? And I will multiply 3 to get 9. And I will get 1 again, then 0. 3 again. And it goes on forever. Right? And it goes on forever. It doesn't stop. So this is also another type of decimal number. But if you notice this decimal number, the number repeats. All right? There's a pattern to it. So we call this, all right, recurring decimal. Okay? Now, this recurring decimal also comes from a fraction. So in another word, recurring decimal also falls to the same family of a rational number. Okay? So for now, you have learned that fraction is a rational number. All right? Terminating decimal is also a rational number, and recurring decimal is also a rational number. Now, what do you think about integers? Okay, what do you think about integers? Does integers belong to this family as well? Let's take a look. Now, I have, let's take this example, a whole number 1, all right? Okay, a whole number. Okay, now try to think with me over here. Can I write 1 as a fraction? Yes, you can. 1 over here, how do you write this as fraction? I can write as 1 over 1. It is the same for any whole number. All right, let's say I choose 2. I can write as 2 over 1. If I choose 100, I can write as 100 over 1. So what does this show? It shows that for any whole number that I get, I can write it into a fraction. All right, I can write it into a fraction. And since I can write whole number as a fraction based on this definition here, whole numbers are also falls to the same family of rational numbers. What about negative numbers? Can we do the same thing? Let's take a look. All right, I have negative number here. Okay, so for example, I have negative 1, all right? So negative 1, all right, negative 1, I can write this in two ways as a fraction, which is negative 1 over 1 or 1 over negative 1, right? So this is very similar to this example over here. Okay, since I can write a negative number into a fraction by definition, they also fall to the same family of rational numbers. Okay? So what are rational numbers again? They are numbers that can be written in fraction. All right? It doesn't matter what fraction is it, proper fraction, improper fraction, or mixed number. As long as it can be written in a form of fraction, it will be considered it belongs to this big family of rational numbers.